Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Welcome to the LGMA webinars for the COP28 in Dubai. We will just give a couple of seconds for all participants to settle down, and then from then on we will kick off. Um, so we appreciate your patience with us. So I think we can kick off. Dear friends, my name is Yunus Arakan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLE, Local Governments for Sustainability, and I'm the focal point of the LGMA constituency, Local Governments and Municipal Authorities constituency, to the UNFCCC. The constituency is the voice of towns, cities, and regions in its entirety, the subnationals. This is a monthly webinar, and it is recorded. We recommend you to stay tuned until the end of the webinar presentation in order to have the full capture. But if you have any urgent questions, points, you can type in the chat box or Q&A box. Today, I am also delighted that I will be joined by my colleague, Madison Hodges, who's our colleague who is the advocacy intern for ICLE Road Secretariat. And she will be also joining with our LGMA constituency along the journey towards and at the COP28. So without further ado, let's go on to our um, agenda for today. We would try to cut the basics part a bit short for those who just have not been involved. Just for a recap, we would like to focus a bit more on the strategic documents that is now available. And we will cover up some of the highlights of the progress since August. Um, we will also spend a bit more time for the COP28 preparations because of the latest announcements coming on. And finally, the stock take for climate emergency is also our flagship initiative, and we would like to keep you informed about what's going on in that front at that stage. Um, it's yes, we said that this is the voice of towns, cities, and regions, subnationals in its entirety. We had been involved in this process since '95. Our major achievement was Paris Agreement, and since then we have been also actively involved in introducing the concept of multi-level action, pursuant to the recognition of all levels of government, the Paris Agreement. In that sense, Glasgow Climate Pact was an important milestone for us. And that's what we are making ourselves to be prepared that in this new generation of climate action plans that will be kicked off starting from Dubai, we are trying to make sure that multi-level action delivers. We have several working groups led by or co-led by different members of the partners of the LGMA constituency. You can also subscribe to our monthly bulletin in order to receive in your mailboxes um, regularly our updates. At the beginning of the year, we had the vision of that we will focus on operationalization of the Surge initiative from COP27. Stocktake will be a major agenda for us, and we will enhance our engagement through the UNFCCC process. We are following closely the leadership of the presidency. We are both enjoying the continuous support of the Egyptian presidency, but obviously since especially June 2023, as part of this regular cycle, the incoming presidency is taking over. And the good news is that with all the leaders of the presidency, we have good relations, and Asif now Shah is our contact person in terms of subnational engagement. Throughout the year, we have developed our roadmap. Actually, we are now in the last 100-meter, and this is what it looks like at the moment. That if we consider the LGMA as the heart of our advocacy, especially building on our achievements over these years. We are seeing a plethora of um, uh, separate or independent processes, all supporting our goals to make sure that local energy norms and um, multi-level action, as well as urbanization, becomes a new feature of this climate process. In particular, we have been now trying to make a connection between the UN Secretary General's agenda, UNFCCC, the action agenda, but there are outside processes such as the G7, the regional urban forums, and of course now the biggest change comes with the presidency's initiative. We will go through it shortly. And then cross-cutting is that we have a major initiative recognized by UN Habitat Assembly, the Surge Initiative. We hope to have this repetition of Urban and Climate Ministerial every year. And there is a group of friends of multi-level action who have been supporting us in this journey, and we hope they will be playing a key role in the process at COP as well, or towards and beyond COP. We have updated our annual roadmap with the last 100 days to Dubai. Obviously, as we said, we are now in the busy period of October. The agenda, I think we were seeing this, expecting this. It's also the Urban October for us, but it is very clear this is the last 6 weeks or so that will shape the outcomes, or that will shape the preparation towards the outcomes of the COP. Therefore, we are very happy that so many agendas are now converging, and of course, all the LGMA partners are participating in different capacities in all these processes. Let's focus on our position paper, which was really a collaborative effort, and those who were involved, especially congratulations to our partners, Regions 4, Committee of the Regions, and the 2 Coalition, and ICLE as the focal point has contributed in this process. The document is now released, and in the chat box you can also find the link to this document easily. Um, we have already made it available on our LGMA website. Let's be going through it very briefly about the content-wise, what actually captures. It is consisting of 2 parts. One, a basic top messages about the context of the topics and how do we see it as local and regional governments? What is the position? What is our perspective? And this is basically summarizing almost all agenda items about how we wish to see a more ambitious action plan where we can provide more active contributions. You may have noticed that this is not just only a position towards to the nations, but in its entirety, this document also, for the first time, probably puts on the table how can a local and subnational climate action plan look like? Because the topics will also be a responsibility for us. We will also be taking a lead role. So it's not just towards parties, but it's also a message internally to our members and constituency as well. Here you can see we have covered almost all the topics that we are actively engaging or we wish to see part of the holistic climate agenda. And the second part of this document, we have formulated sentences or paragraphs that could be now presented to the delegations where they can incorporate into their outcome documents from COP28. It could be the global stocktake outcome, but it could also be the COP28 decisions. Obviously, these are sentences that we wish to see in its entirety, but there are those moments where we all agree that because we are not the final decision maker, it's the national governments who will capture this and table these. We may expect some of those sentences, if it is incorporated, it may not be the sentence that as we have seen, but at least we would like to see the essence of it to be reflected. It can sometimes be just a couple of words, a couple of lines. Again, we always said that this negotiations or the adopted decisions are opening the way for other processes as well. Just let's remember, in '97 when Kyoto Protocol was adopted, there was just one sentence which says parties can use flexibility mechanisms, and this in 10 or 15 years time evolved into a huge process of emissions trading, clean development mechanisms, offsetting, which all it's of course for good for worse. But the example is that with one sentence you can open a whole new world. This is exactly what we are doing here. We had recognition of all levels of government was in Paris Agreement. In Glasgow, we have inserted multi-level, and now we are building brick by brick how multi-level action looks like in the UNSCC space, but also at the subnational and local level as well. So in that sense, that's the reason why we managed. We were proposing that this is in fact multi-level action delivers in action, which is literally how to formulate multi-level action in its entirety at the UNSCC level. This submission, as of course, is an overall vision of all the topics in on stake. But there's another document that was worked out by LGMA partners, which is the global stocktake is concluded its technical review process. There is a synthesis document that is capturing all the um, uh, input so far. Um, and it's around 40 pages document, which was also containing a number of good elements. But the next step of the global stocktake will be the political discussions to be held in Dubai, and that's called the outputs, and some call it global stocktake political phase. And this document is particularly trying to link to the findings of the synthesis report, but also how we wish to see ourselves into this uh, outcome, because the outcome of global stocktake will shape the national climate plan, which is, of course, not the whole UNFCCC process, but it's a very important part of the UNFCCC process. So the national climate plans will be developed at the national level, and the goal is that it will be presented by COP30 in Belém, in Brazil. So this vision, we wish that this would be embedded into the suggestions that will come from Dubai. One important element, this document has also a unique position because it was as a result of the work that has been taken up by the LGMA members and partners who have been involved in the partnership by COP28 presidents and Bloomberg Philanthropies that was announced on 9th of March 2023, this year. Obviously, this is an evolution. This is an ongoing process. It has its own, let's say, process mechanics. But we use the mobilization in that process also to the LGMA offered this as a contribution, because in its entirety there is a strong synergy between these efforts. So one important point, this document consists of um, actually a preamble, which is basically making a reference to the initial reading, LGMA reading of the synthesis report. Then we formulate or we list what exactly we want from parties, and then we formulate in 20 operative paragraphs what is at stake and what can we offer to the global climate community. One important thing in the synthesis report, the thing that is not visible is there is a couple of nice reference to urbanization and local and subnational governments, but it makes no reference to multi-level action, and that is particularly interesting because if you look at the the report, there is an understanding that there is a certain progress of the NDCs between 2015 and 2021, but it doesn't actually explain how this happens. And from our perspective, the fact that around 60 nations have raised their national plans through collaboration with local governments is an important point that should not be ignored, because this practice can be one of the good practice also to be recommended in the second phase, or even be recommended as a recommended process to be followed, which is please engage your local community in the preparation of your NDCs and its implementation. And that goes to our call to parties, um, that we consider this, that they should acknowledge how positive we have been involved in the existing process, which is the first phase of the party agreement. We want them to acknowledge that through this collaboration we can narrow the gap, or close the gap. And with this understanding, we want them to commit to new climate plans with multi-level action. And the rest of the operative paragraph gives them some data, some technical aspects, some references. Some of them are latest observations. And the document also concludes with three annexes. One, these are basically the posters that was also available during the technical dialogue. The first one is the how did multi-level action urbanization evolve in the climate emergency response over this since Paris Agreement in terms of numbers, in terms of process. Second, how exactly also the adaptation is perceived in the cities, states, and regional local governments. And finally, we also provided a list of all LGMA contributions from the June, from the February 2022 until um, June 2023. And that was trying to give the information that the LGMA has been actively following in every step, and that we take ownership of the success, and we also have the responsibility to build on its outcomes so that it is reflected to the political space. This was our key documents. I am. I just like to check with our colleagues. Some of them who have contributed in this process, I assume they are part of the dialogue today or in the afternoon session. But we can come back to this in the Q&A session as well. The agenda is evolving in the regional climate weeks. We just completed in September the first version, which was embed or attached to Africa Climate Summit. Africa Climate Summit is unique because it's the first time Africa, as a heads of states level, made a gathering. And in fact, we are familiar this kind of event like G20 or Commonwealth or European Union, but for Africa, this is happening for the first time. So that's a very nice evolution of the political commitment. There is already a very good announcement from the Emirates to support the climate action in Africa, which I think is, of course, also very nice because it's like a global South-South collaboration. The the outcome document is important because there are two paragraphs that explicitly refers to urbanization and the role of cities and regions and their challenges. The reference is important because in the past we have seen such a heads of state level references in the G7 presidency heads of state documents in 2022 and 2023. We had a similar discussion at the Commonwealth, which is much broader than G7, obviously. And now Africa on its own has such a vision. This shows how the urban agenda, how multi-level action is becoming a priority topic in every climate-related discussion at the highest level, because it is normal that the ministers of urbanization or ministers of climate can be aware of it. But if it is reflected or adopted also in the heads of state document, that is something more impactful because then it reflects the whole government and the entirety of the nation. So we welcome this. We commend the African partners to reach this level of recognition, and I think this will give us the power that Africa could be continuing to take the leadership. For example, let's remember in the Habitat Assembly, it was the African states who were pushing the resolution on climate, first time ever adopted in the Habitat Assembly. So that goes towards the leadership of Morocco, Egypt in the past couple of years. So that's all good news. So the African Climate Week Track to High Level Opening session was also a result of this recognition of the the LGMA constituency, together with COMSSA, the track two, including a number of sessions, but opening this by a multi-level action dialogue by LGMA partners is a very nice signal that that our work is recognized by the UN and even at the regional level. And we also hope this kind of a setting, the scene, could be reflected at all the climate weeks in the coming weeks. We are prepared for Middle East and North Africa. We are prepared for Latin America, and in November we'll finish the Asia Pacific. So that opening the cities track with an LGMA-led session would be really nice for us to uh, lead on. And we congratulate once again our African partners. Um, this also connects one of the outcomes in the past couple of weeks. I mean, there was also some our participation to the loss and damage technical commission transitional committee meeting, which was UCLG representing us. But here we would like to focus a bit more on the Climate Ambition Summit because it is important. It is officially not a UNFCCC process, but the outcomes and the signals will definitely be felt in the UNFCCC process. And this year's particular emphasis was on the integrity, the transparency of commitments. Um, the way the summit was constructed was that the Secretary General has reached out to several specific partners and asked them to fill a checklist from the business community, cities, and regions. And the response they received were reviewed, and they are then called for their presence in the UN Assembly rooms. This was a bit different than the previous practices. The UN Secretary General particularly wanted to highlight the doers and first comers. And obviously, there is this big discussion about okay, that's good to have this leadership, but how will we make sure the others can join this band, which is inclusivity and which is also uh, offering equal participation opportunity to all. But I think the intention is good, and the good news is that the opening it was a very unique setting because there were some nations who were not even eligible to speak because they were not considered ambitious. But in that opening slot, we had very powerful speeches from Governor of California and Mayor of London. Both of them were very fierce advocates of fossil fuel phase out, and they received warm and standing applause from the audience. In the afternoon session, Governor of Washington also discussed, which was part of the discussion on the transition plans. There were no city represented in the afternoon session. We don't know exactly why this was the case, but we believe this process is now open for engagement of other uh, constituencies or other partners as long as they support this vision of the UN Secretary General. The good news, there's a chair summary, which is a summary by the UN Secretary General and his team, of course, and it is a very powerful sentence. It says 1.5-degree aligned transition plans by non-state actors, particularly those of subnational authorities, must converge by 2025 with national demand contributions and ensure they contribute to increase the ambition of national goals. This is exactly what we have been championing over these years, especially when we were asking our constituency members to commit to race to zero, commit to climate neutrality by 2030 or earlier. We were always saying that, look, this is a big, big deal and it needs additional resources, additional powers, and this can only be done through multi-level collaboration. And it was very clear, at least from ICLE's side, without multi-level collaboration, without multi-level partnerships, delivery of this 2030 goals, climate neutrality, climate emergency response is almost impossible for any city, any region, no matter how rich they are in economic senses, because the resources and the capacities are way beyond those that is available to the local governments at the moment. So this sentence, and if you remember what we have presented to the global stocktake outputs, what we have positioned in our COP28 position paper, They are all fully aligned. They are complementing each other, and it's a fantastic signal that we are coming to COP28 with the best ever, let's say, uh, unified and a diverse community and a strong community. And that is reflected to now the COP28 planning. And that's our last part of the discussion. We are very, very excited and proud that Presidency and Bloomberg, in his capacity as UN Special Envoy, announced on the 19th of September that they will host the first ever COP28 Local Climate Action Summit. There are, of course, concerns that there have been so many local climate action summits in the past. We had seen this in even in back to 91. The names may have different voices, different brands. We had this around COPs, on the COP territories, even like in Bonn. But there is a clear differentiation was that this was mainly LGMA led events, which means it's still like a kind of a side event or a sub subcategory. The fact that this is the agenda of COP28 president and it is under the under the auspices of the presidency and with its full support because it's attached to a strategy of the COP28 presidency for subnational engagement. This is happening for the first time. That is true. That is really not has happened before, has not happened before. And most importantly, this summit on the 2nd of December will also be part of the World Climate Action Summit. This is the first and 2nd of December, which is heads of state level. So if we now look at what has been coming at the national regional level from G7, Commonwealth, Africa, there is a huge pressure for urbanization and multi-level action. Then there is the presidency um, opening doors, and that during this around this day, which is 2nd of December, before we are expecting a significant number of mayors and governors and other subnational leaders to be engaged more actively into the climate action debate with the heads of state. Excuse me. And let's remember in the past, this has happened in Glasgow. At that time, it was only one mayor. It was mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti. He was addressing the plenary, and it was in Glasgow. In Sharm el Sheikh, it was the Tokyo governor, Governor Koike. Uh, she was acting in the energy roundtable. So these were our successes, our voices, but it was just one. Imagine that there are dozens of leaders in the rooms. So now with this plan, with this strategy, local and subnational leaders will be both in the roundtables, but they will also have their own summit, which will be an official affiliated event to the climate summit. And this will also be producing the momentum that we need, possibly through a kind of a commitment that heads of state level give guidance to their ministers so that the ministers, especially through the urban and climate minister on the 6th of December, they can then put this into practice in terms of COP decisions. And then we will still continue our collaboration so that we bring the results to Belém in 2025. The other announcement that we are comfortable and proud to share with you is that COP28 Multi-Level Action and Urbanization Program is now officially confirmed to be hosted by ICLEI as the LGMA focal point and UN Habitat. This will build on the model where we had co-hosts like Scottish Government, um, also being an actor of this process. But it is this time a bit beyond because we are reflecting on the theme of 6th of December, multi-level action urbanization, so that in fact, this was always our effort that multi-level action is a bit political debate. It's a dialogue between different spheres of government, but urbanization is much technical and sectoral as a development agenda, which is the role of local energy governments and national governments and even local communities are slightly different, but all part of the process. So multi-level action is more or less an agenda for LGMA, and urbanization is an agenda for nations and the respective UN institutions, which is, of course, represented by UNEP. Therefore, having a theme of this categorization on the 6th of December and making our pavilion be the host of this day through our efforts will be a very powerful and consistent message. That's why we are very happy to achieve this level of collaboration. We wish to have a bigger space, but it is now at the moment 90 meters square. The Dubai colleagues have some challenges in managing this pavilion spaces. Um, this is a sketch that we have been working on, which shows different avenues of engagement at this pavilion. We will have a main stage, which is the place where we can have presentations, we can have dialogues, and this stage will be the one that will be broadcasted, fully virtual as well, and it could be participated through globally. Then we will have a networking space by LGMA and Yanamitat colleagues. And then we will also use a workshop room or a bilateral meeting room. This is also particularly helpful because we are aware many of our partners need such, um, let's say, privacy in order to broker some of their ongoing relations and prepare for some of the processes. Obviously, we will follow the same model that it will be a crowdsourced event or a process, which means there will be some partners like Scottish government or others who would take a serious burden of this financial burden, but others will contribute to this process by reserving session slots, which is 90 minutes, including a 60 minutes technical session, but 15 minutes entry and 15 minutes departure of the space. We would be managing this as ICLE, as the LGMA focal point, similar to the last years. We will invite all the session partners in the past to send their expressions of interest, choosing 3 slots that is available according to their calendar and their budgets. And we will still also chase that there may be some additional opportunities in the shared presentation area as well. And now you can see that now we are getting really to a more concrete agenda in Dubai that is full for 2 full weeks. Definitely, we will be very active in the first week, but this doesn't mean that we will leave COP28 after the multi-level action day is over. This is particularly not our plans because in a usual COP atmosphere, the second week is the moment where the presidency takes ownership or leadership of the negotiated outcomes. And the fact that on the first week we have used all our inputs, and then we will see what comes from the presidency text. And during the second week, we will continue to advocate and lobby that the references, hopefully, that will be incorporated in the presidency text, is retained or even made better. But meanwhile, we will also contribute to other thematic agendas. If you have noticed, the second week of COP is a compilation of themes that are much less uh, tensions, or you can call soft climate action topics. These are the topics that no one can reject. These are the topics that everyone can unite. Youth, children, education, nature, land use, ocean, agriculture, food. Some of those topics are having a lot of visibility that for the first time ever. Many of them are seeing this as like the unification agenda, but we will come to this also that there will be contributions from youth to land use through the local governments as well, and we will be actively in this space as well. Finally, now we are closing with the stocktake preparations. This is really getting a very exciting stage. Uh, as we have discussed before, this is turning your town halls to a mini COP, and the discussion will be about your own commitments, How are you advancing with your own 2030 and 2050 commitments? How are you connecting to your national plans? Are you involved? Are you collaborating with your national governments? And how do you address climate justice? How are you engaging your communities and urban poor domestically and globally? We have been now receiving applications. The preliminary list is now being revised. Particularly, we are seeing that the applications from the Global South was not at the level we wish to see. Therefore, we have launched a call for applications so that we can financially support some of those stock takes. It will be, of course, a representative, but I think we believe it will help to make sure the voice of the Global South is also heard. And there will be even a lot of sessions that are convened independent from our stock support. Therefore, we will also capture them as well. Um, and finally, it is again another demonstration of leadership of local regional governments that the stock take is now becoming a fashion by a number of parties or partners. For example, in the EU, EU is the first UNFCCC party who have announced that they will convene a climate stocktake. This will be on the 27th of October. And this is an opportunity for us, for European cities and regions also to show their contribution. Hopefully, the European stock days could take place earlier than this one so that they can bring the results. And in the agenda, that there is also space for local regional governments that they can share their inputs to the stock take at the European level. And another example that came up yesterday or the day before, the French government, under the leadership by President Emmanuel Macron, are now planning to convene territorial COPs or the COPs at the regional level. And this will be taking place in October. And there's also a vision that this also is an accountability effort. And it's also an effort for bringing local governments more to the front of the climate process, which is exactly what LGMA has been asking for years. So we hope the model from Europe and France could also be inspirational for other countries and other regions so that we can come more powerful to COP28 and make this as a regular agenda of the new era of climate action. Finally, we said this is our next agenda in October, very busy. Um, Throughout Urban October, we'll have World Habitat Day, Metropolitan Day, G7 Subnational Climate Action Roundtable with Urban 7, UNEC Mayors Forum, Malaga Dialogue for Municipal Finance, Regional Climate Weeks in Middle East and Latin America, an October workshop for Global Stocktake Outcomes, and Asia Pacific Urban Forum in Korea. And this is now giving us a very heavy agenda on the way forward. Meanwhile, we will prepare our presence and the preparation for the Local Action Summit. With that, I'd like to give a break so that we can use the next couple of minutes to share amongst ourselves how we would like to advance these topics. There may be some points that I missed. Feel free to compliment. If there are any things that were mispresented, feel free to also correct. And if there's any questions, you can also raise this now. I don't see too much demand in the QA box or in the chat box. Uh, by the way, Madison kindly shared all the links that was referred, or let's say most of the links that you referred. Eva from CMR. So local climate action summit is on the 2nd and not 1st December, right? Um, Officially, the summit itself is on the 2nd of December, but we're expecting several subnational leaders may be invited to join dialogues with their heads of state on the 1st of December as well. We don't know how this will be managed at this stage, but we assume this will be the case, which means some leaders may arrive on the first and they can directly attend the local climate summit on the second and contribute in the discussions about how we will shape this agenda together. But some of them may also be invited to be interacting at the round tables with heads of states on the day before. That's highly likely would be the setting. So better concentrate your presence on second. As I said, for mass mobilization, second, some of them will very likely be receiving another invitation so that they will be invited to be also engaged in the World Climate Action Summit as well. But also, let's not forget, um, especially there should be a continuity between the messages that will be presented or announced on the 2nd of December as well as the 6th of December. So, in practical terms, we have two peak moments 2nd of December, 6th of December. It's very likely that those who are attending one may not stay as long as that they can attend the second or the other. Uh, but it may be possible for some leaders, depending on their calendar at home. So that of course could be a nice case. That also depends on the resources. But there are majority we're expecting that they will attend only one of them. But we have to make sure that they will be part of the big mobilization, and that will be sharing the pride and contributing to the success of this process. Um, Besides city governments, would you also welcome civil society groups for cities to participate in the pavilion events? For the first of all, the local climate action summit on the 2nd of December is also there may be some confusions that you may have heard. There are some reference that 1,000 mayors are invited. I believe that this may be a bit overestimation. It's very likely the term 1,000 is referring to all participants, including local governments as well as civil society and business. So that it will be a multi-stakeholder event as well. When it comes to pavilion, anyone who has Blue Zone badges, they are more than welcome. And how they interact or engage in the session depends on the host of the session. So they are responsible to bring the diversity in their speakers or audience. So that's something that we do not control. And Eva, I think the giving preference to the second or sixth is something that each network should decide and have a careful assessment. Um, I cannot uh, say one is more favorable to the other. Both of them are important. Both of them will have huge role in the process. The important thing is that whoever comes into those processes should feel that they are heard, that they are able to contribute, and they are proud part of this outcome, regardless of their size, regardless of their nationality, regardless of their capacity. As long as they commit for action in an emergency mode, I think they are welcome. Yes, there's also the case. There are some people, there are a lot of cases. Usually, December is not a very ideal timing for local government because usually this is the end of the year. A lot of council meetings taking place. Mayors, especially, or governors or political leaders, are expected to guide these discussions because they are the ones who are responsible for the management of these funds and the political process. So it may not be easy for them to leave their home. That's why it's also good that we have several options and we have a full 2 weeks in the COP so that They can say that, look, I would like to come on the day 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, but they are still part of the LGMA family. So availability of leaders is also a very powerful and important factor. I think with all these QAs and inputs, we can say that for this round, we are good to conclude as long as there's no burning issue. I would like to thank you very much for all your input. Um, uh, if you don't have any additional points, we can conclude this session. Patricia, yes, the presentation will be made available tomorrow, along with the recording. You'll receive it into your mailbox, and it will also be available in the bulletin of LGMA as well. Um, with that, I thank you all for your interest. Wish you the best of success in your events and agendas, and look forward to staying in touch for the next agenda items. Take care. Bye bye.